Previously on D7R TV.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. We hope you enjoyed the last couple of episodes on the Sierra build. The last one was a bit long-winded, but I feel that it needed to be to cram all the information you need to go ahead and make the engine mounts. Today's episode is going to be about fit up. We fitted the turbo manifold. That's easy enough, it's just bolt on. We already made it in a previous video, so you can go check that out. And we've got the black top Zetec inlet manifold, the plastic one. I'm going to show you what problems you may or may not come up against depending on your application and what vehicle you're putting it in or whatnot. So let's go. Right, so we have our turbo manifold on. And it's loosely fitted, but it gives you the general idea. Turbo sits nice. This old coil pack's going. This coil will be removed altogether because we'll be running a Zetec coil. The turbo does clear this by about 20 mil, and we'll show you that. We'll loosely put the turbo on to give you an idea of how that sits. We're using a TD4 off a Subaru, and here is your common Zetec manifold. And we hit a snag. We had an idea it would, but it fouls one of our engine mounts on the driver's side. I mean, these manifolds, I don't like them personally. They sit really, really low, so we need to come and figure out what we're going to use. And there's a couple of manifolds out there. The EFI one. There's a Zetec EFI manifold. There's also the original one off the old engine. That might be able to be used and modified to suit. But as I said, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But this one's definitely not going to work in this application. So we need to figure that out. We've ordered a plate for the inlet. It's about 10 or 15 mil thick. So we'll be welding an inlet manifold and modifying one to suit by the looks of it. Because as I said, this one's not going to work. Customer doesn't want an up and over EFI one, but we might be able to modify one of them. We've ordered one. And it's just about finding what best suits your application and what you're going to use. So take that into account. First up, we're going to be removing the inlet manifold. There's two 13 mil bolts, maybe 3, and about 4 or 5 10 mil that need to come out. So that's got to come off first. I mean, the engine with this inlet manifold, it hits the brake servo, so we've not got a lot of wiggle room, and we can't put the engine mounts back on with this on because we can't rock it side to side to sit where we want it to. And the bottom of this inlet manifold fouls the mount, as we said, and we're not going to modify the mount to suit this inlet manifold when we can find a better solution.
You don't care what you're doing to me. I've been down in the ruins so deep. All the games that you played, all the love you forsaken, you let it slip away. You don't care what you're doing to me. Every setback, every mishap, every time you say you gon' change. Say you get it, you regret it, I forgive it, but you stay the same. You should cry an ocean for me, for the dumb shit and the damage you've done. Cause I've been crying oceans for weeks. Tried to fight it, but I'm drowning alone.
Right, we put the turbo on now and also removed the little coil that was on here, the original one. Mounts are back on. As you can see, stop rocking the cam cover. This engine's nice and solid. I don't know if you can hear me very well. We've got some groundworks going on behind the unit, so it's a bit noisy. But yeah, this is how we want it to be. So, back to the inlet manifold. What do we do? I have got a spare MX5 1.6 manifold, and I think the best thing to do until we get the up and over silver top Zetec manifold is to see if we can make do with the MX5 one, because it points forward. It's got the right injector ports that we need, because we want to be running top feed injectors to make things nice and simple. The inlet manifold off the old engine, it's got side feed injectors, which are not ideal. So it sort of narrows down what injectors you can use. It also has a thermostat housing of some sort, or yeah, I think it's a thermostat housing built in, and it's a bit of a weird shape on the inlet flange, and it also has holes for the spark plugs and the coil leads. So I'm not sure whether I want to use that or not. It does look cool, whether we can chop it up if we need to and mount it to a Zetec flange. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but in the meantime we're just going to try and figure out what best suits our needs. Right, what we have here is a 1.6 NB1 inlet manifold off an MX5. And that is the gasket for it. And here is the hideous Zetec inlet manifold. It's goppered, isn't it? I mean, look at all that overhang, minging. As you can see, they are very, very similar in port size and shape, where the idea has come from. If I put this inlet manifold gasket on here off the MX5, you can see, port for port, they're almost identical. They're not far off at all. There's probably a couple of mil difference in height, but as you can see, from one end lines up, then it starts to not line up, and even more so towards this side, where there's about a 20 mil gap, and that's not quite going to work. I mean, no matter how much I cut this one up, and if I weld it to another flange, I need to make up quite a bit of difference. So I don't think the 1.6 one's going to work, but I'll line it up on the car and show you to give you an idea of what idea I have. We want to be aiming for something that looks a little like this. It's a bit of a tight squeeze, but it's got to go back. There's a water hose that's in the way that I need to move. But we want this sort of configuration. I mean, there's absolutely shitloads of room now off the engine mounts, and that's what we need. I mean, I can see from here that the ports are not going to work, but maybe a 1.8 inlet manifold will work, but unfortunately for me, I've just sold one and it was my last one. So back to the drawing board, but it's not completely off the table, but it's definitely an idea, and if we can figure it out, it's going to be absolutely perfect for us. It's been a couple of days since the last scene when we showed you the plastic inlet manifold and the MX5 1.6 manifold. And the reason why it's been a couple of days is because we had to locate some parts or wait for parts to land. I mean, we have to study this stuff because if you have an idea, you need to make sure you can use this idea and see if it's viable. But the plastic inlet manifold will not work on our application with the way the engine mounts are set up. We've got them parallel and we've got them pointing forward, but the inlet manifold, the plastic Zetec one, it fouls the driver side engine mount, so that's not going to work. And it's ugly as shit. That's another thing. If you want to open the bonnet of this car, see a nice turbo manifold and a nice kit, then that horrible big plastic manifold is not going to do you any favours if it comes to judging. But there's a solution. As I said, it's been a couple of days, and that's because we've been trying to locate parts, and we've sourced a 1.8 non-VVT inlet manifold for the MX5. And yes, it's the same port spacing, albeit a millimetre or so, give or take, which is something we can die grind out. But what's important about that, because you can't chop off the mounting plate or the fixture which goes to the head off the plastic inlet manifold, but there is two types of Zetec manifold, and one is an aluminium one. And this is the important part. The 1.8 MX5 inlet manifold does not have injector ports. The injectors are directly in the head, and that is no good to man the beast on this build. But the silver top Zetec inlet manifold has an injector plate, and it separates from the inlet manifold. And look at this. Here we have it. On your right is a 1.8 MX5 non-VVT NB2 inlet manifold, or NB1 inlet manifold. And here is a silver top Zetec inlet manifold. You can see the significant differences in how it's laid out, but the important thing is they're both aluminium. And if I come round here, this separates. I mean, there's a couple of dowels you need to knock out, but if I flip that up and offer up the Zetec inlet manifold, if I line it up perfectly, what do you think of that then? I mean, we can die grind in there once it's welded. I mean, there's still a little bit of movement. I can pull it a mil or two one way. It's got to come down a touch. But that marries up nicely, and this is usable. We can work with this. Obviously, we can't work with the plastic one because it hits the mounts. But then you've got your injector ports here. As you can see, this doesn't have injector ports, so that's vitally important. These little coolant channels here, I've got to TIG weld them up to get rid of them. This is like a vac or something. Yeah, it's a vac, not air. It is air, not water, should I say. Getting me mucking words fuddled up. So we can weld that up and then weld these up, and that's going to work nicely. So we can trim all this off, clean it all up. We can get rid of that so it doesn't look like it's two pieces. And on the bottom, we can get rid of round here. So we just mark it out with a marker pen and then chop it out and then grind it and die grind it off. And it'll all look like one piece. How about that then? Also in our care package, we have a brand spanking new spoolie boy. Not that mock-up turbo. So this is a TD4. This has been tried and tested on the dyno at Bailey Performance. Not this exact turbo. Well, the exact turbo, but not this one. And it made really, really good numbers. So we opted to get one of these. It's not your average off the eBay one, but it works very, very well. Right, so we've got our silver top Zetec inlet manifold. I'm going to call it the flange because it's not the actual inlet manifold. It's like the first piece. We've got that married up to the head. And as you can see, you've got your top feed injector holes here. So that makes life a lot more easier because you can run a different array of injectors instead of the side feed ones, which are crap and hard to find good ones. I mean, obviously we've got to clean the faces up a little bit, but that'll bolt up nicely. I mean, I'll extract this bolt here and put a longer one in. That's no biggie, they're easy enough to do. So yeah, what I'm going to do now is show you what it's like with the MX5 inlet manifold butted up to it. Just line the holes up, and we're going to end up something a little like this. Much better, isn't it? Suits our application perfectly. Looks a lot better. And once this is all either acid dipped, sandblasted or powder coated or whatnot, whatever the customer decides to use, it's going to look quite nice and unique in this engine bay. As I said, we've got to face the two mounting faces and then weld it all up. Job's a good one. So here's just another little view of the MX5 inlet manifold, and this is the Zetec inlet gasket. You can see how close they are. So a little bit of die grinding and job's a good one. We're on to a winner. Right, I took a marker pen and I've marked out everywhere I need to trim. I mean, there's a bit down here I need to do, and a few other little bits and bobs. Well, it's all marked out now, so that'll make life a little bit easier to weld up. We butchered the inlet manifold, cut off the excess because we're going to weld a Zetec plate onto here, then die grind it out. And we're also going to remove the butterfly flaps because this is a non-VVT 1.8 inlet manifold, as I've mentioned before. So we're going to delete this so it's open, and we're going to weld this port up here and get rid of this little vacuum actuator here. Yeah. With Dale at Bailey Performance, we're just conjuring up some more ideas of what we're gonna do and where we're at. So yeah, up next is going to delete that. Right, with a build like this, things don't always go to plan, and this is why it's up to me to figure this out so you don't have to. This is a aluminium 10mm thick Zetec inlet manifold plate. You can get them off eBay or you can get a machine shop to make you one. And this is the silver top Zetec inlet plenum, the first part with the injector ports. As you can see, our idea was to see if this we'll work on this side of the inlet manifold so we can weld our MX5 onto it, because that is the plan. But as you can see, if we line the holes up, it's not actually going to work. So it's back to the drawing board, but we've come up with another idea. I mean, all the holes line up and stuff. I mean, we'd have to make some spaces there, but we're just going to not even bother. So we're not even going to use this inlet manifold, the aluminium one, off the silver top. We're just going to use this flange, and we're going to weld it directly to the MX5 inlet manifold, the 1.8 NB inlet manifold. So as you can see, our ports match up almost perfectly, and then we've got like a little bit at the top. And what we're going to actually do is we're going to get injector ports machined into the MX5 inlet. Then we're going to die grind all this out to make the difference up, and it should be jobs are good. And back over to the car now, you can actually see our Zetec conversion plate marries straight up to the inlet side of the Zetec engine, and our MX5 manifold is going to be welded directly to this plate, so it'll make it actually shorter, so it'll give us a lot more space. And then we're going to have the injector ports welded, well, have some welded or machined into the MX5 and this plate here at a CNC shop. So it's going to go a little something like this, as Run DMC said. This is the bottom part, and we're going to weld all the way around both sides. The ports have matched up. As I said, a little bit of die grinding in there once we finish up. But what we're going to do, we're going to take our scriber, because we need to weld it from the other side, and we're going to scribe around here to give us our location of where we want to line the manifold up with the flange. So when we flip it over, the hole should be in the right place. It's faint, but you can see my scribe line going around, and this is where the inlet's going to sit on top. This is where we're going to line it up. Right, now we've clamped this down to the table, the flange and the inlet manifold together. So what we aim to do now is get a tack with a TIG welder on each side, and that should hold it in position. Our scribe mark is lined up, and we've got to fully weld the whole thing. Right, it's all been cleaned. I've put a weld prep around the top of the inlet manifold. It's clamped to the desk. I'm going to TIG welding using AC, which is alternating current, with a 2.4mm aluminium filler rod, a size 7 cup, and a laminated 1.6 tungsten. It's been a while, but I'm cracking open my air feed ESAB Sentinel A50 mask, because it's about 30 degrees outside, it's about 35 degrees in the unit, and this thing is basically going to be like air con for my face. And if I don't use this air feed and the cool air in my face, it's all going to steam up inside, and I'm probably going to pass out. Yeah, the struggle is real, but what a wicked bit of kit. And if you're doing stuff like this, especially in a hot summer day, this is what you need, or something with air anyway. When it goes to weld settings, I'm on alternating current. I'm using 120 amps, no post flow, 2-touch, because I'm using a foot pedal, and about 23 balance, wave balance. My torch is getting that hot. It's getting too hot to handle, so I just cut a TIG glove up, make it a little bit more handyable, because literally it's trying to fetch the skin off my hands. It's shrinking my glove. That's how hot it's getting. Right, so that's the inlet manifold welded to the flange. So it's now Zetec of sorts. I can't touch it because there's about 485 million degrees. The TIG torch is still smoking. I made this little leather wraparound because it was almost unbearable because of the amount of amperage and heat I needed to punch through into this manifold. It's popping and banging. That's what this black shit is here. It's all like contamination that's come out of the pores of the aluminium, the cast. It's grotty stuff. And if any of you have ever welded aluminium alloy wheels or cast aluminium before, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You can never get it super pretty, but I don't think it's too bad. I had a couple of passes round to make sure we've got everything and got all the little holes out of it, the little pinholes, because as I say, it pops and bangs. Probably could do with a couple more little goes over, but it's solid and it's perfectly mounted to this flange now. Here, 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 and here, we're going to get machined into injector ports. So that's going to work perfectly for us. So you can forget about the aluminium Zetec silver top inlet manifold now, because it's not really a viable mod. This certainly is. Next up, we're going to cut some bits and bobs off, like this bracket here, which holds the MX5 inlet to the block. It's like a support. We don't need that on the Zetec, so we can get rid of that. There's a load of ports, like EGR valve, like these vac lines here. We're going to leave a couple of little vac ports for, obviously, boost controllers, the ECU for the map sensor and stuff. Sorry, brain shit. Should know me by now. But yeah, all the little ports and all the little things that we don't need, we're going to cut off and make it more individual. So, yeah, hope you enjoy that. All right, I know how some people think, but I'm a glass half full type of guy. I know there's some pessimists amongst you thinking, MX5 inlet manifold, why is he wasting his time with that shit? Just go and get another inlet manifold of some sort. He was on about silver top Zetec ones earlier on in the episode. Like, what happened to that? Well, it's a theory, and we have to test the theory. You got to do the maths. You got to see what's viable. I'm a little bit of a mad scientist. I like to prove people wrong when they say, oh, you can't do that. Well, there's many a time where, yeah, I bloody well can, because I made it happen. I'm a fabricator. If you're a fabricator, you can make shit happen. If something doesn't work, make something work. It's as simple as that. And you're probably thinking, what are you ranting on about? Because I've done something. I've done a thing. And it's to benefit you guys. You're welcome. Voila. A 1.8 MX5 MB1 cross Zetec manifold. MX5 throttle body. That can all be wired in when the standalone ECU is all plumbed in. It's nice and compact. There's plenty of room down by the, well, everywhere, to be fair. There's nowhere near the engine mount. It's nowhere near the brake servo. If I pop this off the top here, obviously that's got to be bolted down. I'll shift that out of the way. You can see where we're going with this. This is a bird's eye view. Directly above here is where our new injectors are going to be machined to go in. Then we can use the blacktop Zetec fuel rail, and yeah, we're not going to use the blacktop Zetec injectors, but the same sort of injector type, shall I say. So that now is married up to the head. And once this is all shot blasted or whatever, you're never going to know. So you're not going to see that. And you'll be like, what the hell is that manifold he's got on there? That's not normal. Like all these ports, I mean, I'll probably cut these off and then weld them up and then linish them flat. This part here, I'll be cutting off, rounding off. A few at the back. EGR's there, that's getting blanked off. The other part of the EGR there is going to get these studs removed and welded up. So this is totally viable and it'll totally work. And it's something you should consider, because I'm actually starting to consider, once the injectors and that are fitted, to actually start producing these. I think that could work, especially in my favour on down days when I've not got much on or I'm waiting for parts to come. The ports are quite big inside there, so there's plenty of flow. These inlet manifolds on the MX5s run boost very, very well. I mean, obviously, I've got to die grind the inside flange a little bit. It's literally 2mm on the two outer ports. The rest are perfectly fine. They line up and match perfect, but I die grind it so it's all port matched. It's going to be absolutely perfect. So there you have it. So there we have it. I think I'll cut you loose on this episode. I'm roasting my nuts off. It's about 35 degrees in the unit, maybe a bit more. I've had a jumper on while I've been TIG welding the inlet manifold flange up. I had to do a fair few passes on there to make sure I've got enough penetration to eat into it. So yeah, I think there's enough information to see if this is a viable option for you. I believe it's a viable option for most people that are running a rear wheel drive Zetec. But my aim is to show you how it's done and give you the information and not hide anything. I mean, that's the point of all these videos. You don't find many videos where people tell you step by step how to do something. You see Matt Armstrong, he'll do a video and he'll be like, oh, I'm taking the exhaust off. And it'll just be a scene of him just taking the exhaust off, or he'll do a couple of bolts. I'm a little bit more thorough, so I'll try and show you everything. Or if it's not relevant, you get the idea. So yeah, please comment, like, share, subscribe, all that jazz, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.